Hey guys, so I've been looking back on the government and thinking in a different light recently to get some more context into where we are and the direction we're going, as I try to look at the world as it is and not so much as how I want it to be. And by that, of course, I mean I'm looking back towards the manuscripts, right? The dialogue that the Founding Fathers and various key contributors to the United States, to the sort of things that they said at the time of and then following the formal creation through signatures and the works to make the United States the actual United States of America. And by seeing how it was then and the sort of things that they had to say about it versus, kind of where we are today, I think that Dave Rubin put it really well when he's, in fact, very well, when he said, a good government is one that I don't have to think about very often. And to look back on how it influenced their lives and how much really was involved back then. Of course, population was lesser, but I think even the involvement required for even that was lesser as well, per capita. If you were to kind of look at the overall effort required per person, I think it's even more now. And that, I believe, is true because of how often I have to think about it. And that don't just mean looking at the taxes taken out of a paycheck, those sort of things. I mean, how often I find it influences my life by decisions that everybody has to make, or even things that are kind of out of our control to some degree by politicians making decisions. And it's kind of a, when was my power lost? When was our power lost? Not, of course, fully lost, but when did it change? Now, let me address that. I know that using the word change is very subjective. Of course, you've got change being used as the Barack Obama's two-term, kind of mantra as we need change. I think Donald Trump got in predominantly as this factor to that voter base, and I don't just mean Republicans, but the generation of we want the current system to change, to be different. And so, of course, change can be good for one and bad for the other, and vice versa. But who's it going to benefit the most? I think in the long run, but more importantly, too, how is it going to get us back to, I would say, sort of the intention of the early government? The early government's intention, of course, as we might have learned in the public school. I know I did, kind of. It was very different from what you actually read when you get into the true sort of dialogue that these great and wise men had, that they would really sit down and discuss. And even when they didn't all agree, they knew that these were the things that needed to happen and needed to be in place in order for us to disagree, but still be prosperous. And I think it could be most oversimplified into two major functions, which is to protect the property and protect the life of its citizens. Of course, you need them to be alive to pay taxes in order to have something. And of course, you don't want people to die, especially these people as theists, as they were more often than not, just believing in a God, not necessarily that they were Christians or not, typically in the Anglo-Saxon sort of Christendom direction of, I guess philosophy and theology kind of a mix in two, as you see them putting the two together in the most ethical manners for that portion of saying that we got to protect our life. And then, of course, protecting property. And in that, I mean, we need people to know that what efforts they're putting into this country are going to be safe. And that's why we see a police force and a military. The military to protect the life from foreign invaders or maybe some kind of crazy internal civil dispute. And then, of course, the police to, on a more local basis, really protect them in their everyday, muggings, murder sprees, because there are going to be outliers. There are going to be people who are crazy or simply make bad decisions. Evil's in the world, of course. But of course, you need to have this sense of comfort knowing that most of the time you can be assured you're safe, and when you can't, there's somebody there to help, and that's where these police and militia forces come in. Of course, you can run through all the amendments and the nuance to it, but I'm putting it in a very, very oversimplified form just for the sake of conversation here, because it's in that comfort that you have a culture that will breed competition, because you don't have to worry about losing what you've got, and you know that it's worth the risk because you're able to achieve more. And in that, you can have education and equal opportunities for these sort of things to climb the ladder, which is a part of liberty. I think a good example of this would be, let me think of an item, TVs. So let's say that you're in a neighborhood and that there are, we're going to say that there are three sort of guys all on the same street. One guy has 2 TVs, another guy has 1 TV, and another has no TV. while away at work, the man with 2 TVs is apart. The house is empty. It's kind of free reign for someone who doesn't respect the idea that that's theirs and I'm going to let them have it. Not to envy to the point where it comes to theft, right? I mean, the 10 Commandments. I, as a Christian, I see that. I see the value in that, and I think our founding fathers did as well. But well-intentioned as it may be, the man with 1 TV walks over to the empty house, takes one of the TVs from the man with 2, walks over to his neighbor with no TV, and he gives him the television, right? So now they all have one. It's equal. It's fair, right? So the questions that come up to this are, why and where did this, this well-intentioned man go wrong, and how should the government respond to it? So while the intention was good, the man with 1 TV infringed upon the man with 2 TVs when he stole or redistributed the 2 TVs by kind of evening them out throughout the 3 men. Of course, if the man with 2 TVs decided, hey, I want to give one to this guy so we can all 3 have our own, that'd be fine because it's his. It's his right to property. Property of which, of course, he paid taxes to obtain. He paid taxes through working, and the property taxes along the way to sort of uphold, knowing that there's, uphold this government, knowing that there's going to be an establishment in place that if somebody were to decide to burn his house down, to steal his TV, to stab his dog, something along those lines, that he's going to be protected from it in the future, and that the man who did this, who's willing to infringe the rights of the others, will be sort of held accountable. Now, the reason that I choose to use the word redistribution of wealth as opposed to just playing Robin Hood and giving, 1 TV to another guy, even though it wasn't his, the other guy being the richer in this case, is because we see it a lot today in the welfare state. And I believe that Samuel Adams put it very well when he said that the welfare state was unconstitutional. And I think what he meant when he was saying that is, the government is breaking its own law to not infringe upon others' property rights and do not steal by essentially stealing to give away. They're playing Robin Hood in this case, and they're infringing upon your property rights by taking more than your fair share in order to help others who simply can't get to that level, get on my level, that kind of thing. And of course, not only in the presence of liberty, but we also learn through Jesus' words that there will always be the rich and there will always be the poor. To some degree, this is just what we've always seen in history, right? Of course, now there's the debate of, well, the rich are stealing from the poor, and that's why they're poor, but realistically, is that the case? And how do we manage that across all of these generations? I think it's a fallacy, and it makes sense why you would believe it, especially through cultural Marxism, if you're seeking power, which is a topic for another time. But what I'm saying right now is we learn that there will be the rich, there will be the poor, but does it mean that the access and ability to gain these sort of prosperous, ways of life, does that need to be any lesser for everybody, or can that be equal across the board? I think in the early days it truly was equal across the board. Why else do we think that America just skyrocketed to success? Because everybody knew, I'm going to leave my house here, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to pay my taxes. Those taxes are going to go to protecting that house. And because of it, I'm going to work more today, and I'm going to work harder today, and I'm going to put more risk into my business, and I'm going to do all of these things because I want my family to prosper, and I want my kids and my kids' kids to be able to prosper from me, that being the inheritance. Of course, some people have kind of an unfair advantage, or so it would seem, because there are those who are simply more determined. They're willing to put in more hours and more effort. There are also those with God-given talents. Talk about unfair, right? Some guy can pick up a guitar and just start shredding, and you're having a hard time playing G, C, and D. But these are things that are real, and we have to understand that. And that's where I think it comes down to realizing that the prosperity across the board can be there, though equality, good luck. So anyways, that's what's been on my mind lately. I'm going to be writing about this. In fact, I cover 2 pieces that I'm going to be writing on and publishing to my site. Once that comes up, link in the description once that it's finally out and everything. But until then,